Hello everybody, my name is Antlers44 and welcome to my Zelda 1 Randomizer tutorial video. Now, one thing I want to stress before I get started in this video is that this is meant to be a very basic video, very basic routing tutorial. It's not meant to be the end-all, be-all of how you should route throughout the overworld, but basically it's a collection of ideas and concepts that I, as a relative newcomer, believe that I could have greatly benefited from knowing when I first came into the game. So it's something that I just want to kind of wanted to share with all the newcomers that we have to the community, so that hopefully they could benefit from some of it. So a few things to get out of the way first. In the bottom right hand of the screen, you'll notice that I have a few little ideas jotted down. These are just some things that I thought might help throughout the video. First and foremost, I want to point out that we have some resources here. If you're not familiar with redcandle.us, I would highly recommend that you check that out. So many tricks and key concepts can be found there, and tutorials on certain tricks, such as block clipping, which you'll see later in the video, screen scrolling, which you'll see. Very important things to know how to be able to do. You can find at redcandle.us, and explains all about it. You'll notice in the top right corner of the screen you have your tracker there. That is very important, whether you take notes by hand or on this tracker, which is called Z Helper, which you can find the download link right there on the bottom right. That is another very important piece. You can click on any part of this tracker and see that you can add different things to the overworld to help you keep track of what you found, what you need to go back to, etc. So what I want to do to start out is I want to basically give you a little preview of what I'm going to be doing throughout the video. So basically, I'm going to be going through two seeds, not completely, I'm not going to like finish both seeds, but I want to go through a lot of the overworld on both of the seeds and show you some things to think about when you're doing it. If you got a seed like this, one will be a more linear seed, that's the one we'll start out with, and one will be a start screen in a more central location. So two very different seeds with very different ways to route them, so you can see kind of in both situations what you'd be dealing with. I also want to point out that since the bracket stage of the current tournament, the Pentaforce tournament, is coming up, that is those are the flags that I'll be using for these. The real big thing about those flags is the fact that it has Second Quest Overworld as opposed to First Quest Overworld. Second Quest Overworld is very different than First Quest Overworld, and that's when we get into this things to know section here that I have in my notes. So before you really start playing the game, a few things you'll really want to do are commit to memorizing all of the checks on the overworld. You can't really effectively play the randomizer unless you know all of the burn bushes that could possibly hide a dungeon, per se, all of the bomb walls, all of the recorder spots. On the first quest, there's one recorder spot, there are 2 raft checks, there are 4 power bracelet checks. The second quest, however, adds in 9 additional recorder checks, 3 additional power bracelet checks, and 2 checks that can only be done using the ladder. The mixed quest means that any of those spots, any of those checks that change from first quest to second quest are randomly added in to the pool of checks. So you could possibly have a burn bush in a first quest area. It could possibly not. You don't know until you actually burn that spot. So you have to literally check every single first quest and second quest spot if the flags call for mixed quest. We won't be seeing that today. We'll only be dealing with second quest, but I highly, highly recommend learning all of these checks before jumping in too deeply and knowing them, because if you don't know where each check is, it's very, very possible that you won't be able to find everything you need to complete a seed. So when we move along here, I have a little prioritization schedule that I typically go by. That doesn't mean that you have to do that. It's just something to give you some food for thought when you're trying to most efficiently route the overworld. So you see this first line here, we have a little priority schedule, and basically I have Armos first, and what that means is there are 5 Armos locations which hide checks. One of those 5 spots will always hide a free overworld item that you can pick up without any additional items at your disposal. That, in my opinion, is the highest priority to route to, and from there, you can, it could possibly be something that'll help you out greatly. It could be a sword, it could be the white sword anyway, it could be the wand, it could be the ladder, which would give you access to another free overworld item on the coast ladder spot. It could be something that's required, like the bow or the silver arrows. That being said, it could be useless, but it's a free check without having to go into any dungeon. You know that you won't have to have anything else to get it. So that's why I tend to prioritize that. The next type of check that I tend to prioritize are open caves. So open caves are where the wood sword will always be. The wood sword will never be in a bomb spot, a burn check, a ladder check, a raft spot, a power bracelet spot, or a recorder spot. It will always be accessible without having any other items at your disposal. So that is instant offense. You always need a sword to complete the game, and a sword will help you immensely in going through the rest of the seed and getting into dungeons and being able to clear them. The third kind of check that I tend to prioritize are unique checks. And what I mean by that are if you found a recorder in a dungeon, if you found a raft in a dungeon, if you found a power bracelet in a dungeon. Specifically, if you found one of those 3 deep in a dungeon. And the reason I tend to prioritize those, if I can, if it's convenient, is the fact that that might give you an advantage over your opponent, because it's very possible your opponent does not have access to those checks yet. So that's something that I try to do. I don't go out of my way, but if I can efficiently route those in, I try to route toward them rather than away from them. The next check in my schedule are burn checks. Now, the burn checks, you need a candle to burn bushes. That's what that means. And the reason that I do those before bomb checks, if I can, is because bombs are not an infinite resource. I mean, they are in the fact that you can always get them to drop off of enemies, but you have a finite amount of bombs at any time. Whereas if you have a candle, you have infinite access to burn as many bushes as you want, and you won't ever run out. So another reason that I tend to route in the burn spots, or I try to anyway, before bomb spots, is because of the fact that with bombs, a lot of them are centered in one corner of the map in Death Mountain. And if you run out of bombs in Death Mountain, then you've instantly routed a lot less efficiently, because you've left a few checks in that area, and you'll have to leave, and then getting back up to Death Mountain is not usually the easiest task, or at least the most efficient task. So that's kind of a schedule that I try to stick by. Again, that's not the end-all be-all, and if you see me in a race, you'll very likely see me deviate from that from time to time, just based on efficiency and based on ease of access. So another thing that I tend to try to do is prioritize high density check areas versus low density check areas. And that means that whenever I decide which area of the map I'm going to try and route to, I try and consider what I have at my disposal and how many checks I can do in that area at that time. So if I don't have a whole lot of bombs, I'm probably going to try and stay away from Death Mountain until I get bombs. If I don't have a candle yet, I'm probably not going to go out of my way to go to the forest and check that area, because I'm going on several screens that I can't check. So you definitely, and that goes into my next point, you definitely want to minimize multiple visits to any given screen. So those are just some pointers to try and consider when you're routing the overworld and trying to make your most efficient path through it. I've seen a lot of time lost just to inefficient routing on the overworld, and I want to try and see if we can minimize that a little bit. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and start going through these two seeds and just showing you some of the overworld routing that I would do. So let's go ahead and get into that. So this first seed is on the vanilla level 8 start screen. Or not start screen, but vanilla level 8 screen. So you see there's no way to get through there except for going north. So right now we are in the forest without a candle. There's not much we can do about that, so we just have to keep going. There's an open cave over here. That's your closest open cave, and we have a secret there. So I'm going to be marking on my tracker just what we find in each location. I don't typically use my tracker in that way. I typically just use it for the really important stuff, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be marking every cave. So I'm going over to the coast now because there is another open cave over here, and we have another secret. So we find that, and then I'm going to check what's on the coast here. And you might be asking, well, why did you go over here? There's, just that one check, and it's by itself. And the reason is because you'll want to be using up A strats when you can. So instead of leaving these one-off checks here, this information, and let's go ahead and just mark that we have the coast item over here. If I can find it. Well, let's just put that, and that's the coast item. We know what it means. So the up A strats, when you pause and push up A and hit continue, it takes you right back to the start screen on the overworld. So now instead of walking back, we can just go straight back and start going back north, which is where we have more open cave checks. So the open caves and the Armos is what we're looking for here. Luckily, on this right side, we have a lot of both. So we're going to check this Armos, and we have a decision here. We have a potion, a candle, and a heart container. You'll want to take the candle if you don't have a candle. That's something that I'm just going to come out and say. You want to take the candle if you don't have a candle, because what that means is you can now route in these burn spots. So instead of having to come back to this later, and let's go ahead and mark that take any cave, we can now, and you know what, we're just going to mark that with an X. You can tell that I don't do this. So we've got a secret there, and so we've checked that spot. So from now on, I'm just going to make an X when there's not something important there that we've got to check. So we're going to keep going up the right side here, and there's our Armos item. That's the raft. So the raft allows us access to the raft check over here. So instead, what I'm going to decide to do here, I'm going to go check this raft spot on the East Coast because we are right next to it, and instead of having to come back and possibly miss something important here, we can just route it in. It takes a few seconds. Okay, just a money-making game. I'm going to mark it as not important, and we're going to go right back. But that's going to help in the long run with the knowledge. So we're going to go right back to where we were and continue on our routing. So we've found the Armos spot with the item. So at this point, sorry, I'm just trying to get off that screen with those Tektites there. The Armos spots are just open caves to us since we have the item. So now we're just going to continue through the open caves the most efficiently that we can. We don't want to die there, so we're just going to despawn those Armos real quick. Go in. And this is a hint shop, so the hints I usually mark with an X. We're going to go ahead and mark them with a book. So hint shops are going to be the book there. So once we get the book in these flags, we can understand these hints. That makes the book very important in many cases here. So we're going to go ahead and do it that way. And one thing that and we're going to go ahead and also mark the Armos item as the raft. And we've seen the ladder item. It is the boomerang. So what I mentioned previously is it's important to know how to screen scroll. Now, it helps routing a lot. It's not required, but it is extremely important to be able to do in certain situations like this, because otherwise you would have to walk south, go through this dangerous screen, walk back north. It costs yourself probably about 10 seconds doing so. Instead, if you can scroll, let's despawn that Octorok there. You can get straight over to the other side, and even if it takes a little time, you've not had to go through that perilous screen to the south there. So let's keep going and check these open caves. The Lost Hills has a wealth of open caves to check, so it's a really good spot to start with. We're going to go ahead and let this Octorok get out of the way, and I was going to scroll, but I got an opening, so we're just going to go through. So now we're just making our way through these checks. There's a door repair, unfortunate. We're going to go ahead and this was a potion shop up here, so we're going to mark that as a potion shop, and so is this. I'm going to mark that as a potion shop. Unfortunately, they are way out of the way. Might not be getting a lot of potions this seed, but that's okay. So we're going to go ahead and scroll right past these Octoroks, and we're going to go up here and make this open cave check on this spot. It's a little bit more efficient to get this check coming back through this way because of the fact that you're going to scroll, and there's our wood sword, so that's big. That allows us to start diving into dungeons. Now we're not going to do that here because this is an overworld video, but that definitely helps. Now that we have the wood sword, we saw these blue moblins, and they are 1 HP, so they are very squishy. And it's a good idea to try and take them out because they are bomb droppers. And you can get some bombs off of them whenever you go through an area that has them. So in the second quest, that vanilla level 5 is a fairy fountain. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check these other two checks, the waterfall and on top of the waterfall cave. And then at that point, our checks in this area are pretty well done. So after we do that, we're going to go ahead and up A. And we found a heart container. Until you have 6 heart containers and you know that you can get the white sword item, I generally recommend taking heart containers at the Takeanies and then taking potions. So at this point, we don't really have a whole lot of checks in this area. We're going to have to traverse some nasty screens to get to anywhere where we have checks. So at this point, I would recommend doing an up A, going back to the forest. So at this point, what I would tend to do is go down through the coast. These are very out of the way checks that you can get done now that we have enough bombs to do it. We're going to go ahead and mark these as unimportant because they were in fact unimportant. So as we go, I'm going to just make sure that don't get hit by any of the P-hats there. So now we have bombs. We can go ahead and make these 2 checks on the coast. So this is an interesting dilemma here. So we found a Takeani cave. A lot of people like to go ahead and just take these and see where they lead so they can get them mapped. So we've got one up in Death Mountain. Got another up in Death Mountain, not the most useful after finding that one just a minute ago. So we're going to go ahead and mark that as 3. And we got one in the forest just right of Vanilla Start. So we're going to mark that as 4. So let's go back to where we were, because we were on a good route, an efficient route. And go ahead and there are some more blue moblins. Want to kill them. We know they're 1 HP. Try and get bombs, which we did. This next check is a shop. So for now, I'm just going to mark the shops as, let's see. Let's just go ahead and mark the shops with, let's say this. Let's just make that the shops. You can tell I don't usually mark the shops. Probably not the best idea, but it comes down to whether you want to be more efficient or whether you want to be, or whether you're good enough to do that efficiently. So here is an interesting check. This is the second quest, or this is a second quest check. So what you'll need to do to check this without having to go to the other side of the screen to burn that bush and come back to the screen is you can clip into that block with a typical sword clip, and we check it, and now we have a dungeon. So one thing about this flag set is the dungeon levels are hidden from you. So until we know what that dungeon is, we're just going to mark that with a level and a question mark. I'm not really going to go too deep into this dungeon because, like I said, this is mainly for overworld purposes, but for now we're just going to mark that with a question mark. So let's keep going. This screen right here is typically an overworld check, but right now with the second quest flags on, it is not. So we're going to go ahead over to the next screen, and this one is still a check. And that is that. So that is a hint about where either the white sword item or the magical sword is. So we're going to go ahead and mark that. Let's just go ahead and mark that as 3 for now until we find it. I'm going to continue on with our checks, and like I said, we're doing it the most efficiently that we can. And here is another dungeon. Let's go ahead and mark that with a question mark. So you see, if we look at our tracker, we're trying to leave no stone unturned as long as it's possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and burn this bush and check this open cave over here. Got another shop. Gonna go ahead and mark that. Oh, let's get off that nasty screen first. Gonna go ahead and mark that with the same thing that we marked the other, and keep going. So in the desert, a good thing to note about Second Quest Overworld, the desert has 3 recorder checks, whereas the overworld, or in First Quest, the desert is not useful at all. It's just a time sink to traverse through the desert. Now I'm at half a heart, so it's a good idea, since I'm right over here by it, to go ahead and grab a fairy fountain and refill the hearts. So at this point, we have 6 bombs, we have no keys, and we have a candle. So we're right over here next to a lot of forest checks. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and route down here, check these forest spots, because we have the resources. We have candle and bombs to be able to go down here. You could go up north through the desert and then check those, check all the things coming down from the desert, from the area of like vanilla level 1, but that's completely up to you. So we're just finding these checks right here. That was a rupee secret. Now another thing to note is that the screen north of Vanilla Start is also not a check in Second Quest Overworld. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this check. Over here we got to take any, so I still don't have the white sword item, don't have 6 hearts, so we're going to go ahead and mark that with that, that's fine. So right now, just to route it in, I'm going to check this other open cave down here. And actually we have some blue moblins. Let's go ahead and see if we can grab some bombs off these guys. So we want to maximize our efficiency in checking the overworld. Like I said, we're trying to leave as few stones unturned as possible. So now that we got that cave out of the way, we're going to go back up north here. And like I said, we've got this unique item, this raft. So we're going to go ahead and check this raft spot while we're at it. Make sure we don't get hit in the process. We've got a rupee secret up here. Go back south. And we're going to go ahead and go up the candle row here. So nothing too important there, just another shop. Again, we're going to mark that. And I apologize for being slow on the marking. Again, I don't typically mark all of this stuff, so this is just something I'm doing for the video. And that is the other hint right there, because you go in and he just says my lips are sealed, doesn't say anything else. That is the other hint for where either the white sword item or the magical sword is. So let's go ahead and just make that another S3 for now. This is also not a burn spot in second quest, where it is in first quest, so you don't have to worry about that. And we're kind of snaking our way back up through this area, and we find another level here just southeast of Vanilla 1. So we're going to keep going. While we're up here, I'm going to get this inconvenient Vanilla 1 check out of the way. Go ahead and see if we can get some more bombs. Nope. And there's a door repair. Not the end of the world. We have more than enough rupees right now. Gonna mark that as unimportant. Money-making game. Not necessarily important. Another thing I want to note is that I've got it on first quest. So I changed it to second quest right there, which makes more sense based on the tracker. Now you notice that the tracker has blue spots in all of the actual second quest check spots. It has red shading that are on screens that are not checked, and it has just regular non-shaded areas where there are just general checks that are good for either first or second quest. Now I'm going to scroll past this river here and make this out of the way check while I'm still over here. That's another area where being able to scroll will save you tons of valuable time. So the reason that I did it that way is because we're going to go down south here. And here's another place where scrolling can save you just a ton of time. And we're going to actually scroll, well, if I don't mess it up, and mark that spot unimportant, we're going to actually scroll over to the Armos spot. That's something that a lot of newer players don't know that you can do. And it is a potion shop, so we're going to go ahead and mark that. But now we're just going to go right down this little path that we kind of passed on earlier when we decided to go to Candle Row instead. Now this is a really nasty screen, and I'm probably going to die here. Hopefully not. Maybe not. Okay, I'm through. So we're going to go down, make this check after we check for bombs. We'll take the heart though. So now we're right back on path checking the Deadwoods, and there are some good bomb prices. We'll take those. That may be the rare shop. That's the first shop we've seen with bombs. We're going to go ahead and mark it with the thing we've been using to mark shops so far. So one thing to note is that this screen is a check now. Let's mark that unimportant real quick. And we have another level. So that is a big reason that you need to know all of the checks when doing this game, because if you only know first quest, you wouldn't have found that. So we're going to go right back down south here to Vanilla level 3, and you see the actual castle looking thing is gone, and we just have a cave. And here's level 9, which is the only dungeon that will give us the level right off the bat. So we don't have a recorder yet. We found tons of dungeons. That being said, we're going to go ahead and go over past this recorder check and see what's in this open cave while we're down here. It's always a good idea to make this check, in my opinion, when you're in the Deadwoods, so you don't have to make that long journey back if it ends up being something important. Turns out it's just a secret. So we're going to go back up through the Deadwoods. And this time, we're going to check this last burn bush. And this is not a check in second quest, as you can see. We're going to check this burn bush here. And it's nothing important. We're going to go ahead and mark that. And we're going to go up to the grave area, and we're going to go back up through Death Mountain. So, as you can see, with the path that we've taken, we've checked pretty much every important area that we have access to right now, outside of Death Mountain, which is where we're making our way right now. And that was just a shop. And then the 3 bomb spots in second quest in the Lost Hills. So that's one thing that I actually did have access to earlier when I was up there, because I got that pack of bombs, but we were on a good path up there, so that's close enough to start that it's easy enough to go check those 3 bomb spots if we need to. So we found another level in Vanilla level 6. We're going to go ahead and mark that one with a question mark. Now we're going to make our way up through Death Mountain. So this is definitely the easier seed to route, because you start in a corner of the map. You don't start in the very middle. That typically makes it an easier routing makes for easier routing decisions, rather than having to start in the middle and be like, oh, I don't really know where I want to start, and possibly doubling up on several of the checks that you make, or the screens that you traverse anyway. So we're just going along through here. That was another unimportant couple checks there. So right now, with us being in Death Mountain, we're going to go ahead and check West Death Mountain first, and there's a reason for this. So we go ahead and check the spots here. So we've got nothing really important there. Got our check done. This is the any roads that we found earlier, and we're going to go ahead and bomb this one spot over here. So what we're going to do, instead of going up those ladders, if you're able to scroll again, this is a place where you can route a little bit more efficiently than if you weren't able to. So we're going to scroll over through that wall, and now we can come over here. Now, we know that's an any road over there, so we don't necessarily have to go onto that left screen, but if we didn't know that, we'd be able to go there and actually check that, come up this ladder, and make this check, and then just go back around. And then we end up a lot closer to East Death Mountain, which is the last place that we'll check. So So we're going to go ahead and keep making these checks. Now we find our white sword item. It's the wand, and we are able to get it. So I'm going to go ahead and mark white sword item as our wand. Going to go ahead and mark that as the white sword item. And we're going to go ahead and continue making our checks here. So one thing to note is there are actually 3 power bracelet checks in Death Mountain, as well as 1 recorder check in Death Mountain. So it definitely pays to have the power bracelet when you come up here, if at all possible. That way, again, the reason for that is the fact that it's so inaccessible generally to get to Death Mountain. Now, that's not necessarily the case this time with the Any roads, but it makes it a lot quicker generally if you have the power bracelet. You don't have to come up here multiple visits. That's invaluable when trying to route the most efficiently that you can. So we're out of bombs. Hopefully we can get a bomb drop. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go through and show the last of these few checks here, in theory rather than in practice. So no luck there, and there we go. So we've got these checks here. It's a door repair, not important. Yep, and I had the wrong weapon out. So now, you see, we really haven't doubled up on too many spots. I'm just gonna clear that spot because I checked it already. So the only spots really that we're gonna have to double up on are the bomb spots in the Lost Hills and whatever recorder and power bracelet spots that we've seen that we haven't been able to do. Now the reason that we don't have those right now is because we haven't been diving dungeons. And this is the last non-unique spot outside of the bomb spots in Lost Hills that we have to do this seed. So that kind of gives you an idea of how you might want to route a linear seed like that, or a relatively linear seed. It's a lot easier, and if you try to minimize the doubling up, it's a lot easier on more linear screens. So now I'm gonna go ahead. I think we've gotten the point across in that seed. I'm gonna show a seed that is more of a central start screen here. So what we're gonna do is go to this other seed. So this is another one that I've pre-vetted, and now you see we're like right in the middle of the map. So in this case, what I generally try to do, and I'm going to reopen my tracker here so that I have a clear tracker. Okay, so now we have a new clean tracker, second quest spots, and we're going to go ahead and show how this routing might be a little bit different. So we start on a check, but we don't have a candle yet, so we can't check the screen. So what we'll want to do generally is just head in our priority toward the most efficient route that can help us route in that priority. So what I would tend to do in this situation is route toward the highest density of Armos items. So we're going to go ahead and head in that direction and maybe die in the process because that screen is absolutely nasty. What you probably want to do, because you're probably not making it back across that bridge, so we're going to check Vanilla 1. I'm just going to mark shops as X's right now rather than take the time to worry about it. But what I would do is up A. And the reason for that is it's going to be a lot easier to get through this screen whenever you are not coming through that bridge. Sorry, had to concentrate there for a second. So, what we'll do is route toward these Armo spots. There are 3 Armo spots on the right side of the map, 2 on the west side of the map. So I'm going to go ahead and route toward the ones on the east side of the map versus the west side. I'm going to check this open cave on my way, and look at that. It's the sword. I did not know that was going to be there. That's a welcome surprise. So again, while we've got now that we've got our sword, we're going to kill these blue moblins, see if we can get a bomb drop. If you're confident, really confident in your movement and your combat, a lot of times you won't grab that fairy fountain, but for newer players who aren't as confident, it's probably a good idea, because overworld deaths are very, very costly. So we're going to head back in the direction of our Armos checks and see if we can get a nice free item from them as well. We're going to go ahead and mark real quick that this was our wood sword. So this is just an open cave. We'll go ahead and check it while we're here. Just a shop. We're going to go ahead and head south for now. And that's because we really want to prioritize that Armos item. It could be something very, very helpful in dungeons or just the overworld. So it is just the boomerang. Now, a lot of people will pick that up. There are a lot of differing opinions on that. It depends for me on what I have at the time. So I picked it up. While we're down here, we're going to go ahead and route in these other checks. So we have just a door repair there. We can't really check those 2 spots because vanilla level 2 is now a recorder spot. But let's go ahead and mark that. Now here's our any road. So this could be big, especially since we're about to run out of open caves to check down here. So one's in the desert. Let's go ahead and mark that any road 1, that any road 2. Let's go ahead and check the next one. And that is very nice because we can go ahead and check a lot of this stuff out up here while we're up here. So that's just a shop. We're going to go ahead and mark that with an X. Mark that any road 3. Now here we kind of have a decision to make. We've kind of been all over the place so far. We want to get some normalcy to this chaos as far as our routing goes. You see, we've got checks all over the east side of the map. So you could just go ahead and check out the rest of Lost Hills. I tend to not like to do that because I want to be able to end my exploration of the east side of the map with the waterfall, just because you're not coming back from the waterfall, and that's a long trek the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and take these stairs. And we've got vanilla level 6. Now that's very useful for routing purposes as well. So we're going to go back to where we were and finish out our route down here, because we've got 4 bombs. We've got another open cave to check, and we've got the knowledge of the coast item that we want to get as well. And no shortage of nasty screens in this overworld. That's always fun to deal with. So nothing too important there. Actually, I mismarked there. So we've got the any key on the coast. Let me just fix this real quick. So that was our any road number 1. And on the coast, we have the any key. And on the Armos, we had the banana. So we're going to go ahead and continue south here, get these out of the way, coast bomb spots out of the way. And here's our first dungeon. I'm going to mark that with a question mark and head right back out. And we've got, so that is the big reason that I like to not leave these coast spots behind, because they're very easy to forget about, but if it's like this seed, and you have 2 dungeons down here, and leaving that behind can be very, very costly. But leaving anything behind can be really costly. You gotta kind of play the odds. Unfortunately now, we don't have a candle. So what I would tend to recommend at this point is once you do that last spot here, instead of having to go all the way back to the other, or to where you started, or to somewhere where you have checks left, I would tend to recommend an up A. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up through the screen again, if we can make it without dying, which we did. We're going to go over to the forgotten spot. We're going to check that, and we're going to take that same route that I took earlier in that previous seed. We're going to check this, buy more bombs. Now you might not buy bombs in that situation if you're playing an actual race or an actual seed. For our purposes and routing, we're just going to pick them up. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and make this check. And we know that neither of these were incredibly important. So we're going to keep going down the same path that we took earlier, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to find a Take Any cave somewhere and get a candle. We still haven't found any Take Any caves. We definitely need to find one, or at least find a candle for sale somewhere. Now there was a candle shop that we saw earlier. I don't remember where it is. I was kind of hoping we'd find a Take Any cave before that, but this would be a situation where it might be worth it to go buy that candle, because we're starting to run out of spots, and here we go. This is what we were looking for, and now we can route the rest of this overworld a lot more efficiently. We're going to go ahead and scroll there, and what we're actually going to do, instead of going that way, we're going to go up through Burn Row, and there's a reason that we're going to do that. And we're not gonna bomb. We're not gonna bomb the burn bush. We're going to burn the burn bush. And here is another level. So we're gonna go ahead and mark that with a question mark and get right back out. And so now we've got this last check done, and there's another level. And right out of here, we can go ahead and save and get right back to the start screen. We can skip that other overworld check, replenish our hearts, and while we're up here, let's just go ahead and make this real quick candle check up here, then up A again. So we don't want to leave these one-offs if we can avoid it. And with our up A strats, we find that up A, and we're right back on our path. We just don't want to forget about that check either. So let's go ahead and mark that off, and we're going again. So we're going to come down, make these 2 burn bush checks, another level. Gonna go ahead and get out of there. And check this burn bush right here. Okay. Now we're snaking our way back to where we were. Now, with this open cave, it's going to have to be a backtrack one way or the other. One screen backtrack is not the end of the world, though. I chose to do it on the back end. You could have done it at the start when we started this route. Either way works. But we're just going to go ahead and get that. And now we go back down here, check this bomb wall spot here. And that's a hint shout. That's very important knowledge. So now that we're through with all the checks over here, we're going to actually scroll over to vanilla level 3. That saves quite a bit of time in routing, because you don't have to traverse some of those more treacherous overworld screen spots. So rather than go north 2 screens out of our way to get those 2 burn spots, we're going to get them on the back end. We can kind of just swing around when we come back that way to pick them up. So we're going to go ahead and grab this open cave down here. Not that I know of. So let's go back up through the Deadwoods. We're going to go ahead and scroll right on past this block here and check the screen. Now, like I said, you don't have to be able to scroll to do that. You can just go around that little wall of trees, but I'm trying to demonstrate how scrolling can save you time in different situations. So don't think that you have to be able to do it, but it really, really can help in a lot of different situations. So we have another level. Let's go ahead and head back on that same route that we took earlier. There's a reason that a lot of this looks similar. It's because there are definitely more efficient ways to route certain areas than others. So we're going to go ahead and get out of there. So we're going to scroll through here. Again, saves a ton of time rather than doing the up west, down west typical route that you have to take to get through the Deadwoods. Check this grave spot. Some more bombs. We've got 7 bombs, don't necessarily need that. So we're going to go back up through the grave. Now we have a decision to make. So we can go to Death Mountain and do the bomb spots, or we can go back toward the east of the map and check out the rest of the east side of the map. What I'm going to do, first I'm going to check this one screen out of the way here, because that is 2 screens away from anything else, and so we have 5 hearts. We're going to take this last heart container here. Instead of having to backtrack and doing the bomb spots in Death Mountain, we're going to go ahead and go back to the Deadwoods, and that was a bad shot that I took. So the best spot to warp to, or sorry, the forest, not the Deadwoods. The best spot to warp to here, in my opinion, would be 1. And we're at 4 right now, so 1 will take us right back over there. And the reason for that is we can get those burn spots out of the way to the west here. And since we don't have Power Bracelet, Death Mountain is a lot less likely to be a one-stop shop at this point. So we're going to go ahead and not bomb, preferably. We're going to burn. So we're going to get these checks out of the way, and I'll show you how we're going to route this. So make this one check down here. Again, nothing all that important. Make this one burn spot check over here that we couldn't do earlier. A little time save is to go north here instead of go back down west. Make this one burn check that we couldn't make here. And here's our white sword item. It's the ladder. So now, what we probably want to do is go over and grab our any key. And the best way to do that would actually be to backtrack a little bit at this point. Found the white sword item there. I'm just going to mark it with an X. At this point, it's just important to know that we checked it. So we're going to go back down this way. And another important part of going... Ooh, that's gross. Okay, so don't die there. We're going to get right back over there, just as if I hadn't died. It's a lot harder to try and explain what I'm doing and also play the game, it would seem. So we're going to get back over to the screen that I died on, just as if nothing had happened. But sometimes you will take a death there, so, you know, that can happen in your game, and then at that point, there's not really much you can do about it. You just have to route it the most efficiently that you can, and also don't go south on the left spot there. You want to go right, the right path, because you can't get there from the left spot. This is not first quest. So we're going to go back over here, grab our coast item if we can without dying. There we go. Pick up that any key, and we're ready to go again. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to go north. And I know that there's that burn spot that we've got to get. Another little trick that we can do is another screen scroll that'll save more time. You scroll over here, through that wall, and you're right there by the burn bush. Pick that up. Alright, so that's a shop. And we're going to go ahead and go back north, check out the rest of the Lost Hills. The great thing about that is we've checked some of the Lost Hills already, and we'll be able to do it more efficiently this time. So we've checked the Armos and that far northeast corner, so we don't have to go near as far when we're up here. We do have to check the potion shop, which is right here. And we do have to check this bomb wall over here. So let's just go ahead and make sure that I don't die here. Alright, there's a heart. Okay, that's welcome. We're also trying to get bombs. There we go. Okay, check that bomb wall. Nothing there. We can go ahead and scroll back over there. Now again, you don't have to scroll there, but scrolling on that screen specifically can be very, very helpful because it has a tendency to be a very nasty screen with nasty enemies. So we're going to check out these two last caves up here. Nothing in that one. And we have a level. It's level 9. So we're going to go ahead and dip out of there. Scroll right over here. We'll check these waterfall spots, and this time we are actually going to end up at a point where we're relatively close to a lot of checks. So we want to check the top of the Waterfall Lake first, and then head back down to the inside of the waterfall, because we're just going to continue on from here, because the last thing that we have access to right now is Death Mountain, if we can make it there. It's inside of the waterfall, just a secret. So we're going to go ahead and scroll past these enemies. Again, invaluable to be able to scroll on these screens because they can be filled with Lionels. it can be very nasty. We've already checked Forgotten Spot, so ideally when you scroll you wouldn't actually go left there, you want to go up this ladder because we have a couple checks to make up here. Now with how many dungeons we've found at this point, it's pretty likely that we'll have either Power Bracelet or a Recorder, which will make it a lot more worth it to come up here. So nothing there. Now we would typically go east to grab that eastern cave over there and then come back. I'm not necessarily going to go over there. We're just going to go ahead and route through the rest of Death Mountain. So the second I decide to scroll, they start cooperating. So nothing useful there. Got this check. We're going to come back down, hit this cave that we didn't get last time, and that's why I checked that bomb spot to the right of Vanilla 6 instead of leaving it, because now we don't have to route back to that. Now we're just coming through the north instead, and we don't have to go back down there unless we've got the Power Bracelet, in which case we would have routed into that earlier as well. So now we just continue through Death Mountain, and it's all we have left. We've got this bomb spot, and I'm just going to stop bombing the spots at this point because I'm out of bombs. But we've got this bomb spot here on this screen. We route over here, again, because it's more efficient. You end up closer back to the central area of the map. Go right up this ladder. Bomb second quest level 9 spot right there. Got a bomb wall right there that you check. Got a bomb wall there that you check. And finally, your last bomb wall on the overworld. So that is kind of just a couple of seeds to give you an idea of some strategies to help you minimize your double dipping on the overworld, help you route a little bit more efficiently if you're not as used to this game or this randomizer, how it works, where all the checks are, and just help more people get comfortable with the randomizer so that we can grow the community. It's been a really great community since I've joined a few months ago, and these are all things that I think would have really helped me to see when I first started, because my routing when I first started the game was admittedly pretty inefficient. I would double dip screens all the time that I didn't have to. I would go so slow through the overworld, and it would cost me a ton of time. So with this general idea behind your routing, some of these concepts, hopefully it can help some people out there to improve their general play and how they can route the overworld. Again, this is not meant to be the end-all be-all. This is not necessarily aimed at folks who have been playing for a long time. This is really for folks who are beginning to play the game and are looking for a place to start. So I hope this helps somebody. If it helps one person, then I'll feel like it's a success. So if you have any feedback, any questions, put them in the comments, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. Also, if you have any other questions, use those resources here, redcandle.us, zhelper, very good resources. Also, join the Discord, the Zelda 1 Randomizer Discord. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I'll try and put that in the description as well. So, thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps, and yeah, have a good day.